We in our modern world are tragically and pitifully deprived of rites and rituals. We have absolutely no way to express our inner spiritual pursuits and yearnings. On top of that, we are not advocated for it even in our dominating religions. For instance, even in Christianity, rites and ritualistic expression is almost non-existent. And I apologize to the mega churches and to the micro mega churches which scatter all over our Western society. However, having a fog machine and some generic monotone music with very generic lyrics, raising your hands and saying, "Oh, praise be," does not count as rite or ritual. That is not what the mythological expression really is in any way, shape, or form. Furthermore, we are so clogged and deluded with this fast-paced society, with everything being rapid and with us constantly being on our phone, that we're never disconnected from the world abroad long enough to actually look inside ourselves in an introspective manner. This is problematic on a lot of fronts because, one, it distracts us from our spiritual pursuits and our spiritual journeys, but it has no way to verify or give conclusiveness to our inner spiritual activities. For instance, in the Catholic Church, that is one of the last places that we actually see rites and rituals practiced. And even that is declining rapidly and horrifyingly. They have all of a sudden taken away the Gregorian chants. They've turned it into a monotone universal language, into a more modern language, which just doesn't quite uh, capture the essence of the spiritual journey or the spiritual transformation. They've put more emphasis on theology and theological understanding than they have the actual rite and ritual itself. Therefore, it's deprived the rite and ritual of its actual merit and its actual intention. The intention of rites and rituals are to transcend. It's to lose yourself in the spiritual atmosphere. It is to have an extra psychical experience, a transcendental experience. It is to have what is very close to a psychedelic experience. And when you've made it theological, you've deprived it of an ancient aspect. In other words, the modern Catholic Church has lost its meaning because its meaning is to be a conservative property for tradition. It is to be a vehicle for the transcendent function, and it is to be a conduit of rites and rituals that are primordial and that have deep psychological meaning and value. Instead, they have tried to make everything formalized. They've tried to make a fiction into a science, and therefore, you're not only losing the value of science and devaluing the myth itself, but by mixing the two together, you've concocted a toxic mustard gas, for lack of better terms. So even our modern religion has deprived us of the symbolic expression of rite and ritual. What is rite and ritual, though? It really is an absolutely phenomenal and essential aspect of the human psychology because it is a symbolic expression of internal movements, of internal yearnings. It's where we lose ourselves and we become captivated in a moment in time that is transcendent, what we would call the divine. But in our modern world, we lack this entirely. In fact, Joseph Campbell pointed out in an interview done, I believe, in the 1950s, if I can remember correctly, but don't quote me on this. He gave a parallel. He said, look at Salt Lake City. It was founded as a religious or spiritual epicenter, so to speak. And within that center was the temple, that was the church. All roads, all paths, all avenues led to the church. However, if you look at it over a time lapse, if you look at the development, it kind of warps and forms like an organism under a microscope because it was a biological activity. And now you stop and you pause at, say, 1960. All of a sudden, it was no longer the epicenter, was no longer the church or the temple. Instead, it was the government building. And that reflects the psychology of the time. That reflects the evolution of the American psychology. The center shifted from spirituality, from the temple, from the place of inner self respect and inner introspection, to government activities, laws, regulations, finances. And now, if you look at the epicenter of Salt Lake City, it is corporate America. It is corporate thinking. It is the factories, it is the shopping centers, it is the malls, it is consumerism. And this, of course, reflects our overall psychological evolution. As Carl Gustav Jung said, that these are manifestations. No city is built or designed without it being a manifestation of the psychology. No bridge is constructed without it being a manifestation of the psychology. And we are pitifully unaware of our own psychology. We are completely naive and we know so little about the human psychology. But even in our own spiritual lives, even in our personal psychologies, we can see this shift take place too. The spiritual pursuit is no longer the center of our lives. The spiritual aspect is no longer in the center of our lives. Not all roads lead to our psychological well-being, and this is a sad state and a sad reality for our modern world. All roads instead lead to countless other places. It's busy, it's hectic, it's chaotic, but we have no way of finding that spiritual center anymore. I think we need rites and rituals to be able to symbolize our inner spiritual reality, to recognize our spiritual steps and our milestones. Because without coming to these conclusions, without accepting this spiritual reality, we become deprived, we become hopeless, we become hollow shells. We need rites and rituals again, not only to express transcendent functions, but so that we can actually experience and have transcendent functions, to be one with the divine, whatever that is.